All right, diving into the world of metals and metal ores today, getting you prepped for that import-export manager interview. And yeah, it's a field where you can have a real global impact. We've got a whole stack of RoleCatcher resources here to help us break it all down.
We'll walk through some of those tough questions, give you strategies so you can answer strong, and yeah, even sprinkle in some insights about what a successful career in this field looks like.
Let's set the stage first. According to the RoleCatcher Career Guide, an import-export manager in metals and metal ores, well, they do way more than just move metal across borders.
Right.
You're like the conductor of a global orchestra, making sure everything runs smoothly, from sourcing to delivery, all while navigating all those regulations and international relationships.
Exactly. It needs a very unique set of skills: analytical thinking, cultural sensitivity, deep understanding of the global metals market. And speaking of skills, the career guide highlights some really interesting ones, like monitoring. Think about this. You might be tracking shipments in real time. Using satellite data, predicting potential delays, it's not just spreadsheets, it's about managing risks before they even happen.
That's like detective work,
Yeah.
but for metal shipments. All right, let's get to the heart of this deep dive.
Okay.
Those interview questions. Ready to tackle some tough ones.
Absolutely. Let's start with one that almost always comes up. Tell us about your previous experience in dealing with the import and export of metals and metal ores. This is your time to shine. Showcase your expertise, your passion for the industry.
So how should someone approach this question? What are they really looking for?
They want to hear about your practical experience, but even more important, they want to see how you added value in your past roles. So don't just list your duties.
Right.
Focus on accomplishments. Quantify those results. Like in my previous role, I successfully negotiated a new contract with a Brazilian supplier, securing a 15% reduction in the cost of manganese imports, saving the company $1.2 million annually.
Those numbers are impressive. It really gives a picture of your impact. Now, what about follow-up questions? Like, what if they ask, what were the biggest challenges you faced in that negotiation?
Be prepared to share specific obstacles you ran into,
Right.
whether it was cultural differences, logistical hurdles, or even like those market fluctuations that nobody saw coming.
Yeah.
But here's the key. Focus on how you overcame those challenges. Show them your problem-solving skills, your resilience, ability to adapt to unexpected situations.
So it's about turning those challenges into stories that highlight your strengths. Now let's try a different question, one that might catch you off guard. What are some alternative job titles for this role?
What they're doing here is they're testing, if you're aware of the industry, how different companies structure their import-export departments. This is where your research on the company, the role, it really pays off.
So what are some alternative titles someone could mention?
You might see titles like International Trade Specialist, Logistics Coordinator, or even Global Supply Chain Manager. But the key is to connect those titles back to the core responsibilities of the role. Show that you understand that import-export process.
Great tip. I want to touch on something RoleCatcher's AI does that's really cool. Imagine having a virtual assistant to tailor your answers to each job.
Yeah, you can actually upload the job description to RoleCatcher and it'll analyze it. Highlight the keywords and skills the employer is emphasizing. That gives you real insights into what they're really looking for, so you can adjust your answers and emphasize the parts of your experience that matter most.
It's like a secret weapon for interview prep. Okay, let's try another common question. What are the key challenges you have faced in your previous job in the metals and metal ores import-export industry?
Okay, this question is all about showing off your problem-solving skills in the real world. So choose an example that shows you can think critically. Gather info, make strategic decisions under pressure.
So what kind of scenario would make a good answer?
Think about a time when you had to deal with a big disruption, like a port strike, a natural disaster,
Oh, wow.
even a sudden shift in commodity prices. Walk the interviewer through what you were thinking. What steps did you take to figure out what was happening? How did you communicate with everyone involved? What solutions did you come up with to lessen the impact?
Don't forget to say what the outcome was.
Right.
Did you minimize losses? Find creative workarounds? They want to see that you can handle pressure and get good results.
Absolutely. Now, here's a question that might seem straightforward, but it needs a little finesse. How do you stay updated on the latest regulations and standards related to the import-export of metals and metal ores?
Why is this one trickier than it seems?
They're not just looking for a list of websites or publications. They want to see you're proactive about staying ahead of the curve, because it's constantly evolving, this regulatory landscape.
So how do you demonstrate that proactive approach?
Mention organizations you follow, like the World Trade Organization or the
Oh,
International Chamber of Commerce. Talk about industry events you attend, like the Metal Industry Trade Show, where you network with other professionals and learn about new trends.
so it's about showing your commitment to always be learning and staying at the front of the field.
Yeah.
What about industry-specific certifications? Are those worth mentioning?
Absolutely. If you have certifications like the Certified International Trade Professional or the Certified Supply Chain Professional, definitely highlight those.
Okay.
Shows you've invested in your expertise and you're serious about this career in international trade.
Okay. Let's move on to a question that gets to the core of what an import-export manager does.
Yeah.
How do you prioritize and manage your workload in this fast-paced industry?
Organization, time management, being able to juggle tons of priorities without dropping the ball.
So how do you paint yourself as that master juggler?
Mention specific methods you use, like the Eisenhower matrix for figuring out what's urgent and important. Talk about the project management tools you're good at using, like Asana or Trello. Those help you keep track of deadlines and progress on a bunch of projects at the same time.
Don't be afraid to mention those soft skills.
Oh, yeah.
Things like communication, collaboration, being able to delegate well. Those are super important for managing a complex workload.
Exactly. And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can help you fine-tune your answer. Remember those keywords we talked about? It can analyze the job description and see if the employer is really focused on specific project management skills or software.
That's super helpful. You can really tailor your response and highlight the parts of your experience that fit what this employer is looking for. Okay, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back to tackle some more of those challenging interview scenarios.
Okay, let's jump back into these interview questions. Find some more strategies so you can really nail those answers.
We've talked about experience, challenges, regulations, even handling a busy workload.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at a question that really tests how much you pay attention to detail and how well you understand quality standards in metals and ores. Ready for this one?
Bring it on.
Okay. How do you ensure that all import-export transactions comply with relevant quality standards and specifications? This is critical, right? Because it goes beyond just moving metals around. You're the one making sure those metals meet the highest standards. You're protecting your company's reputation, avoiding costly mistakes.
Yeah, this is where your knowledge of industry-specific quality standards comes in. Think ISO,
Right.
ASTM, and any other certifications that apply to metals and metal ores. Show them that you don't just know these standards, you use them in your work.
So how do you showcase that in an answer?
You could say something like, I'm well versed in ISO standards for metal testing and ensure all imported materials are accompanied by valid certificates of analysis.
Okay.
But don't just stop at certificates. Go further. Talk about your process for verifying those documents.
Right. It's about showing you're careful and you have a system to make sure everything is up to par.
Exactly. You could mention doing inspections when things arrive.
Okay.
Maybe working with third-party labs for independent testing.
Huh.
Or even having a really strong internal quality control system. All that shows you're committed to keeping those standards high.
I bet there's a follow-up question coming. Like, what if they ask, what would you do if a shipment arrived that didn't meet quality specifications?
Good point. That question is meant to see how you handle things when they go wrong. You got to show off those problem-solving skills and how you balance quality with business needs.
So how do you navigate that balancing act?
Have a clear plan. First, isolate the stuff that's not compliant so it doesn't cause more issues. Then, document the problem thoroughly. Photographic evidence, detailed descriptions, test results.
Documentation is key, protects everyone, and creates a clear record.
Absolutely. Then, talk to the supplier. Tell them about the discrepancy and start a discussion about solutions. Maybe reworking the materials, sending the shipment back, or even using insurance. It all depends how bad the problem is.
Sounds like communication is essential through that whole process.
For sure. Keep everyone in the loop. Internal stakeholders, the supplier, any third party that's involved.
Okay.
Transparency and proactive communication help build trust and make sure everyone's working towards a fix.
Okay. Let's move on to another question that often comes up for this kind of role. Can you describe a time when you had to negotiate a complex import-export agreement with a customer or supplier? This one's all about showing off your negotiation skills, cultural sensitivity, your ability to think on your feet in a high-stakes situation.
Yeah, it's not just about the best price. It's about building good relationships, understanding different views, finding solutions that work for everyone involved.
So what kind of situation should someone choose to show those skills?
Pick something that highlights those cross-cultural negotiation skills. Maybe a deal with a new supplier in a different time zone with different ways of doing business, or a tough negotiation with several parties that have different goals.
When you're telling your story, take the interviewer through each step. How did you bridge those cultural gaps, build a good relationship, and get to an agreement that was good for everyone?
You could say, I was negotiating a contract with a supplier in India for a big shipment of steel. We had to figure out different expectations for payment and delivery, plus language barriers. I made sure to learn about Indian business culture beforehand, really listened to their concerns, and found creative solutions that worked for both of us.
Great example. It shows you're not just negotiating, you're solving problems and building relationships. Okay, let's switch gears and talk money.
Right, managing finances is crucial in this role.
Here's the question. How do you ensure that all import-export transactions are completed within budget constraints? This is where you show your financial know-how and your ability to control costs in a global market.
Definitely. Show them you understand shipping rates, currency changes, tariffs, and duties. Those can have a big impact on the budget, so you need to show you're on top of them.
How can you show that in your answer?
You could say, I use freight forwarding software to compare shipping options and find the most cost-effective routes.
Okay.
Or, I keep a close eye on currency exchange rates and use hedging strategies to avoid risks from sudden changes.
Those are good examples. It shows you're proactive and thinking about ways to keep costs down.
Yeah, it's not just reacting, it's being proactive. Highlight any experience you have negotiating good payment terms with suppliers, or putting in place process improvements that cut down on logistics costs.
Let's talk about something that's often overlooked, but super important.
Safety.
Yeah, safety has to be a top priority, especially with large amounts of metals and metal ores.
Here's the question. How do you ensure that all import-export transactions are completed in compliance with relevant safety regulations and standards? This goes beyond checking boxes. It's about showing a real commitment to safety and doing things ethically.
For sure, you need to show them, the safety rules for moving metals and metal ores, especially if there are hazardous materials involved.
So how do you show that in your answer? Be specific. Like, I ensure all shipments are properly labeled, packaged, and documented according to international safety standards, including those set by the IMO for maritime transport.
Good example. Shows you're familiar with the rules that govern this industry.
Don't forget any internal safety protocols you've put in place before, like regular safety checks or training for employees. This shows you're proactive about managing risk and committed to a safe workplace.
Okay, let's tackle another question that focuses on your people skills. How do you maintain effective communication with stakeholders in import-export transactions, including suppliers, customers, and service providers? This is all about showing you can build solid relationships, even across different continents and time zones.
Exactly. Clear communication is the foundation for international trade to be successful. You need to convey information accurately, build relationships, and navigate cultural differences well.
How do you show those skills in your answer?
Share what you do to keep those lines of communication open. Maybe you've set up regular video calls to connect with suppliers overseas. Or maybe you speak another language so you can communicate better with international partners.
Those are great. Communication isn't just about giving information, it's also about listening and understanding different viewpoints.
Absolutely. Show them you can handle disagreements professionally and find solutions that work for everyone. If you've ever successfully helped a supplier and customer work out a dispute, that's a great story to share.
Ready for a question that really tests your big picture thinking?
I love questions that make you think about the future.
Okay, here it is. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing the import-export of metals and metal ores industry in the next 5 years? This is a big picture question. It's about understanding industry trends and being able to think strategically about the future.
This is your chance to stand out with your insights. Show them you're not just focused on the day-to-day stuff, you're thinking about the long-term challenges and opportunities.
So what are some challenges someone might want to highlight?
Think about things like the pressure to reduce carbon emissions from making metals.
Yeah.
Geopolitical risks that could disrupt global supply chains, or the increasing demand for metals that are ethically sourced.
Those are all important. And don't just list the challenges, offer some solutions or ways to deal with them.
Right. You could talk about how blockchain technology could make the supply chain more transparent.
Okay.
How putting money into renewable energy sources could help the industry lower its carbon footprint. Or how building strong relationships with suppliers in stable regions can reduce geopolitical risks.
Before we move on to the last set of questions, let's go back to RoleCatcher's AI. We talked about how it can analyze job descriptions and highlight important skills,
Yeah.
but it can also help you practice your answers and get feedback.
Right. You can record yourself answering those tough questions and get feedback right away on how clear you are, how concise, and how much of an impact you make. It's like having a personal coach, helping you get better and feel more confident. It's super helpful if you want to do your best in the interview.
Okay, ready to tackle the last set of questions and really impress them.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see what we can learn.
We're back for the final part of this deep dive, looking at import-export management. We've covered a lot, from what the job involves to handling those tough interview questions. Now we're going to look at a few more situations that might pop up in your interview, giving you the tools you need to handle them like a pro.
These last questions really test your problem-solving skills, your industry knowledge, and how well you think on your feet. So let's see what we've got.
Here's one that could really put your skills to the test. Imagine you're dealing with a huge delay in a shipment of iron ore from Australia. What steps would you take to minimize the impact on production? This is a classic scenario question, right? Meant to see how you handle pressure and make big decisions when time is tight.
Yeah, the interviewer is looking for someone who can think critically, get information fast, and come up with a plan that keeps things running smoothly.
So how do you answer this question and show off those skills?
First, don't freak out. Take a breath. Approach it methodically. Start by figuring out what's causing the delay. Is it logistics? Bad weather? A problem at the mine? Something else?
Makes sense. Gotta understand the problem before you can solve it.
Right. Once you know the cause, you can figure out how it's going to impact production. Check your inventory, look at the production schedule, see how much time you have before things start to fall apart.
Being proactive and getting all the info you need before making any moves.
Exactly. Once you've got a handle on things, then you can start looking for solutions. Can you get the rest of the shipment faster? Are there other shipping options? Can you get the materials from a different supplier, even if it costs a bit more?
You got to be resourceful, think outside the box to find the best solution.
Totally. And don't forget to communicate. Keep everyone updated throughout the process. The supplier, the shipping company, the production team.
Super important. Good communication can really manage expectations and keep stress down during a crisis. Okay, let's look at a different scenario. This one tests how well you know the market and your analytical skills. You've noticed the price of copper imports has been going up lately. How would you handle this?
This one's about showing that you're not just reacting to the market, you're watching for trends and thinking ahead about potential problems.
So how do you answer this to show that proactive mindset?
Start by figuring out why the price is going up. Is it higher demand? Supply chain problems? Geopolitical stuff? Once you understand what's going on, then you can start making a plan to reduce the impact on your business.
Sounds like research is key.
Yeah. You could say, I'd do some in-depth research to understand why the price is increasing. I'd look at historical price trends and talk to experts in the field to get more insights.
That shows a data-driven approach to problem solving.
For sure. Once you understand the situation, you can brainstorm solutions. Can you renegotiate with suppliers? Can you use different materials or adjust production to use less copper?
All good strategies. It's about adapting to the market while minimizing the effect on your business.
And depending on what's going on, you might also think about hedging against future price increases, using financial tools to manage that risk.
Good point. That shows you're thinking long-term about keeping costs down. Okay, ready for a question that really tests your ethics.
Ethics are huge in this industry, especially when you're getting materials from all over the world.
Okay, here's the scenario. You're offered a much lower price on a shipment of cobalt from a supplier in a country known for human rights abuses. What do you do?
This is a tough one, right? Balancing saving money with doing what's right. It's a classic ethical dilemma. Lots of people in this field will face it at some point. They want to see that you're not just about the profit, but that you care about responsible sourcing and ethical business.
So how do you deal with a situation like that?
Be honest and upfront. Acknowledge the problem and say what you're worried about. Like, that lower price is tempting, but I have concerns about getting materials from a supplier with a questionable human rights record. Ethical sourcing is important, even if it costs more in the short term.
Strong statement. Shows you're not going to compromise your values for a cheaper price.
And then you lay out the steps you take. I'd do a thorough check on the supplier, look at their certifications, audit their practices, and talk to independent groups to verify their human rights record.
So it's about being proactive and making sure your sourcing is in line with your company's values.
Right. You could also mention you'd check your company's ethical sourcing policy and talk to the legal team to make sure everything you do follows both internal rules and international standards.
It shows a thoughtful and responsible way of dealing with a complex issue. Now, before we finish this deep dive, I want to go back to one last thing that can give you an advantage when you're prepping for your interview. RoleCatcher's AI feedback features.
Oh yeah, good point. We talked about how RoleCatcher can help tailor your answers, but it can also help you sound better and feel more confident.
Right, you can record yourself answering those tough questions and get feedback right away on how clear you are, how concise your answers are, and how well you come across. It's like having a coach right there with you, helping you see what you can improve and practice till you feel ready.
Really useful tool for anyone who wants to do their best in an interview.
Feeling prepped and ready to go for that interview. Remember, you have the knowledge, the experience, and the AI tools to help you succeed.
The metals and metal ores industry is a dynamic, exciting field with lots of opportunities. Your passion, your expertise, your commitment to doing things the right way, that's what's going to make you stand out. So go out there, ace that interview, and start this awesome journey.
That's all for this deep dive. Check out RoleCatcher, explore their resources, and start building your winning interview strategy. Good luck!